Bastian, so I guess Switzerland, they tried their best. The president tried her best. She went to Washington, even to meet with the Secretary of State to try to bring that tariff rate down. But no, 39% rate now going into effect.
However, I think what is important is that the world right now is racing to make promises to Trump. We've just seen it with Apple. Tariff rate went into effect as of midnight New York time, so just over an hour ago. And yeah, as you said, it's the highest rate which Trump has slapped on any industrial nation.
In this video, we're breaking down how one unexpected tariff just shattered the idea that some markets are untouchable. You're going to see how Trump's 39% gold bar tariff from Switzerland spooked Europe, threw traders into a frenzy, and sent Canadian leaders into full defensive mode. We'll unpack the sudden arbitrage gap, why the EU froze in disbelief, and the very real fear that next time it could be your phone, your car, or even your medication. Stick around, because once you see how fragile these trade flows are, you'll never look at global stability the same way again. Before we move on, I will like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Gold has always had this boring reputation. It just sits there in vaults, looking shiny, not starting trouble.
Gold futures in New York this morning surging to a record high after sources telling us at Bloomberg that Swiss gold bars are unexpectedly facing U.S. tariffs. Bloomberg's Oliver Crook joins us now.
Those are actually now going to face tariffs. And you've seen the reaction within the markets at a time when we had the Swiss president going to Washington, D.C., failing to speak to basically anybody on the Trump trade team, only getting a meeting with Marco Rubio. They got it overnight, saying that basically, a part of the gold market that they thought was going to be exempted, which is sort of smaller Swiss gold bars that are about 100 ounces to 1 kilogram.
But in January 2025, it somehow became the Kardashian of commodities. One morning you woke up and bam. Gold bars were suddenly the center of the biggest market meltdown of the year. And the star of the show, Grumpy Trumpy, sending out an enforcement letter that read like a ransom note for Swiss gold dealers. A surprise 39% tariff slapped specifically on Swiss 1 kilo bars. No speeches, no warning, just a bureaucratic gotcha dropped into inboxes. Within hours, the calm, orderly world of gold trading flipped upside down. Traders went from sipping coffee to stress-chugging energy drinks. Calls blasted non-stop, every conversation starting with, "Have you seen this?" US-Europe gold shipments didn't just slow down, they hit a brick wall. Warehouses in Zurich and Geneva started looking like a failed Instagram thrift shop, pallets of gleaming bricks stacked to the ceiling, because no one in their right mind was paying that new Trump tax unless absolutely forced to. Here's the crazy part. January's US gold imports hit 43 metric tons. To put that in perspective, that's almost double what the US can refine domestically in a month. It's like America tried to eat an entire Thanksgiving dinner in one afternoon before starting a diet. Every importer with half a brain was rushing to get product into the country before the tariff clock struck midnight. And it worked. For them, at least. For everyone else, welcome to chaos. Phones in brokerage offices were ringing like a bad telemarketing scam. Private dealers in New York were quoted saying gold suddenly felt scarce in a country drowning in the stuff just days earlier.
It's I say at least doubtful, like if all of these promises will be kept, right? And I think what we've seen playing out in Washington is just Karen Keller-Sutter, the Swiss president, but also I think she just kind of refused to do that, and this is why she had to leave Washington empty-handed. That doesn't say, however, that a diplomatic solution can be found. And this afternoon, European time, the Swiss government is going to meet for an emergency meeting. This has just been announced, and then they will make decisions. We don't know.
The tariff made U.S. gold prices leapfrog over European levels, which set off the perfect stampede for arbitrage. Traders started scheming ways to flip European gold into the States without eating that massive extra cost. And yes, plenty of those loopholes probably smelled worse than Donny diapers at a rally. The emotional shock didn't just hit traders. Across the Atlantic, the European Union, usually a masterclass in deadpan poker faces during trade disputes, looked visibly rattled. This wasn't some minor adjustment you drink espresso over and roll your eyes at. This was a full-on curveball at a speed nobody saw coming. Brussels officials were reportedly scrambling to get answers, only to find Washington wasn't in the mood for explanations. So why did January go down in history as the Great Gold Rush month? Simple, front-loading. Everyone who could bring in gold before the tariff did exactly that. Shipments doubled, warehouses overflowed, and traders pocketed profits before the door slammed shut. The rest of the year? Enjoy figuring out how to make high-end bullion sales without losing your shirt. And here's the kicker. This was gold, a shiny rock that most people never buy directly, and it still shook markets half a world away. Imagine the chaos if it had been an entire sector people touch every day. What if tomorrow, a surprise letter announced a massive tariff on cars, or fuel, or medicine? The gold story wasn't just drama for finance nerds. It was a flashing red light for how easily everyday economic stability can be derailed with one signature. That's the part Canada noticed, and they weren't about to wait for Grumpy Trumpy to pick their number out of the hat. Canada didn't need a memo to figure out what that gold drama really meant.
Switzerland considering retaliation. Maybe they won't do it, as no other countries have. But what about a carrot, Oliver? What could Switzerland possibly offer this administration?
Nestle's down 20% over the last month because all of the Nespresso capsules in the world are made in 3 plants, and they're all in Switzerland. A week that you had really colossally bad news for the Swiss. They're stuck with that 39% tariff, and so you're going to see it in the gold market. Obviously, for watches, you guys were talking about luxury a little bit earlier.
Watching Trump smack Swiss bars with a 39% tariff out of nowhere, Ottawa pretty much said, "Yep, that could be us next." It didn't matter that this time it was bullion. Canada knows its big-ticket exports are just as easy to throw on Trump's dartboard. Cars, crude oil, natural gas, even pharmaceuticals. If it sells for a lot and crosses the border, it's technically fair game. And when you've got Grumpy Trumpy making trade calls based on whatever mood he's in before lunch, that's not a comfort. Worse, the White House already put the America First toll booth in front of several imports this year, but here's the insult. Mexico got a 90-day delay on some of those new tariffs. Canada? Nada. No grace period. No heads up. Just a Monday morning where the rules had changed, and no one from Washington had even bothered to text. That snub landed right when Canadian stats showed a 13% drop in total exports in the second quarter of 2025, with energy shipments down a brutal 20%. And if you guessed Alberta got hammered hardest, congratulations, you understand Canadian politics. Now the obvious, gut reaction play might have been to start swinging back, slap some duties on US goods, and send a press release that says, "Two can play this game." But instead, Prime Minister Mark Carney went for the poker move. Quiet face, calm hands, and some very quick shopping for alternative partners. Within weeks, top Canadian trade ministers were boarding a flight to Mexico City, smiling for photos and reassuring each other about regional resilience. They weren't just talking NAFTA nostalgia. They were looking at Mexico as a safety valve if the US tightened the screws further. At the same time, Ottawa started making nice with old friends in Europe. Not the tourist handshake kind, but the how about we revisit that trade framework kind. Canadian officials met with EU trade people to test the waters for bigger energy shipments, more auto exports, and maybe even some strategic minerals swapping now that everyone's seen how one guy's pen can rewrite the rules overnight. Because here's the quiet truth. Canada's real power in trade isn't maple syrup. It's the stuff the US actually can't do without. Rare earth elements, nickel, cobalt, lithium, the oil and gas that keep American furnaces and truck fleets moving. The auto parts, without which Detroit turns into a museum. That's the leverage. Of course, leverage is one thing. Turning it into dollars without the US market is another. Selling oil to Europe means longer shipping routes, higher fuel costs, and dealing with VAT charges that make accountants scream. Moving auto parts to Asia isn't as simple as loading a plane. It means new supply chain agreements, customs compliance, and hoping nothing sits in a port during typhoon season. And even if the political will is there, the paperwork alone is enough to make a grown trade lawyer cry. But the calculation in Ottawa is simple. It's still worth it. Because the alternative is waking up one morning and finding Donnie Diapers has just slapped a 40% tariff on Canadian cars because a Fox News segment convinced him they were too cheap. So, no, this isn't panic. This is Canada building an escape hatch while the house is still standing. If that gold tariff showed anything, it's that today's secure trade partner can become tomorrow's unpredictable cost problem with zero warning. The gold mess might have ended with stacked bars in Swiss warehouses, but the bigger message stuck. Global trade isn't a sleek, stable machine. It's more like a glass chandelier hanging over a dance floor. It only takes one offbeat step to make it shake. And in this case, the music may have just started. The gold tariff chaos was never really about gold. It was a live demo of how even the most boring, stable market can be yanked into a political brawl overnight. Grumpy Trumpy didn't just hit Swiss bars, he proved that nothing's off limits. If a niche commodity can flip the game in hours, imagine what happens when it's gas for your car, milk for your fridge, or meds in your cabinet. One surprise letter and prices turn into a joke you're not laughing at. Stay sharp, because the next twist might start with something you never even thought could change.